the president now is realizing that he doesn't get to choose, and you actually have to lead, and the country's problems become your problems. And when you occupied 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, it kind of doesn't matter what the problem in America is.
Yeah.
It may not be your fault, but by God, it's your responsibility.
Right.
One of the other things that stands out in that NBC report is that Biden is angry that the White House keeps changing the intent of his statements, that when he says things in public, they'll release something to clean it up. And he's mad that he says look, I'm got here because I'm plain spoken and I mean what I say. And yet the White House is changing the public statements in order to mean something else. The big example is when he said that Vladimir Putin can't stay in power, and the White House had to release a statement saying he's not changing policy, he's not calling for regime change. And Biden was apparently angry about that. And so this is...
Well, and by the way, I don't want to cut you off, but remember how the White House comm shop dealt with that story about Biden being angry about being undercut? Is they undercut him again by saying we only undercut him when he tells us to.
Yes, that's right. They explained that he approves all of us whenever we undercut him. It's amazing. So here's the thing that sticks out to me, though, and this is, I think, a bipartisan point, which is it's very interesting that, especially over the last two presidencies, how on display the power of the bureaucrats underneath the president is. So in Trump's case, you had people like, Miles Taylor writing op-eds in the New York Times under the anonymous pseudonym saying that you've got a range of Trump officials who are actively subverting the president because we have to do this in the interest of democracy. We have to save the country. You had officials who were keeping from Trump the troop levels in various countries around the planet from the Pentagon. And it was on and on and on, right? We kept getting these stories, and the press kept framing them as like noble exercises of the defense of our democracy. But of course, they're undermining the duly elected leader of the country. Meanwhile, in Biden's case, you're seeing a similar phenomenon. It's not being portrayed by the press the same way, but Biden himself, his word is not good enough. It's whatever the people underneath him need to come out and explain, including if it's the polar opposite of what he just said in public. And I think there's kind of something very subversive and anti-democratic about that, because in the end, only Biden is actually responsive to the voters. The voters get to decide who's in the White House. And yet the people around Biden are constantly changing the meaning of his statements. And I think this is it's a dangerous trend. And I think that people should be attuned to it, Leland.
It is a fantastic, fantastic point. And I think you just perhaps solidified for me what the lead of the show is this evening. Which is that, and I had not made the connection of the bureaucrats controlling the president in a way that we didn't really understand, and maybe in a way that's not so much the bureaucrats' fault as it is the president's fault, because he is the commander in chief, and he is responsible for who reports to him, and boy. Doesn't the press love it? The press loves nothing more than a good leaky White House. They loved it with Trump. They couldn't wait for the narrative that there were people protecting democracy from Trump, which MSNBC and CNN just absolutely ate up and loved. And at the same time, Fox can't wait to push the narrative that Biden is out of touch and in charge, and it's really the mysterious bureaucrats and Ron Klain who's undercutting him, and then are mad that. And he's mad that he's being undercut. So it is a product of the media, but goes back to it. It's the fault of the commander in chief. If you want that job, you've got to be able to manage and to run it. I think perhaps we're seeing, and I think George W. Bush rightly pointed out that no one, that history really is written 20 years later, and who knows how we're going to view any one president, but. Say what you want. You didn't have this kind of stuff either during his time in office, and you certainly didn't have it in Obama's time of office. They just didn't tolerate it.
Yeah,
it didn't happen because they and their chiefs of staff didn't allow it to happen.
Get out of here! Look.